Week. And now for part one of our interview with Professor Noam Chomsky. Noam Chomsky has been a leading intellectual of the left for more than 35 years and has written about and spoken to a variety of issues including capitalist economics, the nation-state, focusing on an extensive critique of the powers that be and the policies of the United States, education, socialism, war and peace, and anarchism. He began his career in the study of language and is credited with the creation of the theory of generative grammar, considered to be one of the most significant contributions to the field of linguistics made in the 20th century. Recently, Professor Chomsky, author of over 30 books of science and of politics, has been the subject of an interview, along with Gilbert Ashkar, by New Jersey-based political scientist Stephen Shalom in the book titled Perilous Power, the Middle East and U.S. Foreign Policy. In this book, he discusses, among other things, the resurgence of religious fundamentalism in both the Middle East and within this country, and offers some perspective on what might be the cause or causes of the trend. Also, in a recent interview in The Humanist, the flagship magazine of the American Humanist Association, Professor Chomsky continues his analysis of religious fundamentalism, as well as talks about other issues at the core of the humanist worldview. Equal Time for Free Thought spoke to Professor Chomsky a few weeks ago on the substance of humanist thought, from naturalism and religious critique to the political and economic structures which must be in place in order for us to effect the social changes necessary toward creating a humanistic future world society. Here is part one of that discussion. First, let me say that Equal Time for Free Thought is very happy to have you join us today, Professor Chomsky. Your work covers much ground on the human condition, from language and the understanding of human consciousness to humanity's social-political relationships, and further to the way we share Earth's natural and human-made resources, and still more. Equal Time for Free Thought's central mission is to promote a scientific naturalist worldview in understanding the human condition, which of course includes much of what I laid out regarding your intellectual curriculum. The end result for us is a set of principles and ideas which together form a larger philosophy, or way of seeing the world, which, though not exactly the same thing as conceived by each one of us at every moment, we call humanism. To begin this conversation, I'll give this to my co-host, Neil Murphy. Neil?
Thank you very much, Barry. Professor Chomsky, welcome to Equal Time for Free Thought.
Very glad to be with you.
Thank you. A few months ago, The Humanist, which is the magazine of the American Humanist Association, published their interview with you on humanism and other related free thought questions. Now, before we move forward, do you consider yourself a humanist, and if so, what characteristics would you include in such a philosophy?
Let me begin by quoting a philosopher friend of mine who once had to write a critical analysis of work of mine. And he started off by saying that, kind of scratching his head, he said, "The problem with me is that the only ism I believe in is truism." So, which is not entirely false. So, yeah, there are things I agree with, but I don't associate myself with any particular ism.
Now, modern humanism is said to be based on scientific naturalism. And our philosophy is informed by what we learn about the universe and ourselves through the physical and social sciences. Do you feel that naturalism is the most appropriate point of view toward understanding what sort of creatures we are?
I think that's my professional life, so sure, I think it's a fine thing to do, but the truth of the matter is that these are, from the point of view of science, most of these topics are almost inaccessible. And for now, and I suspect for the indefinite future, we'll probably learn more about human beings from literature than we will from science.
That's an interesting point. Why would you say that?
Science deals with questions that are at the periphery of understanding. To try to understand the nature of insects is difficult enough. When you reach anything as complicated as humans, it becomes an extremely hard problem. One reason is that we can't do invasive experimentation with humans. So when you want to study, we happen to know a lot about the human visual system, for example. But the reason is because we permit ourselves, rightly or wrongly, to do invasive experimentation with cats and monkeys, and we have a more or less similar visual system. But humans are a very unusual creature, biologically isolated in many respects, and we don't really learn a lot about them from some, but not a lot, from the investigations we allow ourselves to conduct with other organisms. That's one impediment to understanding. Another is it's just very complicated.
What is your view overall on supernaturalism? Now, for the moment, let's separate this from what we might call religion, which can mean several things like established churches and organized ideology. Do you think holding a supernatural worldview is healthy and beneficial for humanity?
It's not for me. I don't see any point to it at all. On the other hand, I know that it means religious beliefs and other forms of supernaturalism happen to mean a lot to a lot of people. If I find someone who's, say, mourning the loss of a dead child and is comforted by the idea that they'll be reunited with the child in heaven, it's not my business to try to convince them that their belief is incorrect. In fact, in a way, I think they're lucky to be able to have such a belief. I don't have it, and I don't think in the long run it's healthy. But we can't legislate to other people what they should believe in order to, say, comfort themselves.
It almost sounds like you have a laissez-faire attitude towards religious belief. In other words, as long as one person's private morality doesn't interfere with someone else's, then you can sort of live and let live. Is that a fair assessment?
Absolutely fair.
Okay. What in general do you feel then about religion's role in human society, both historically and here in the 21st century?
Overall, I think it's, in terms of its effect on policy, ranging from social policy to war, I think it's been mostly negative. In fact, often extremely negative. With regard to individuals, it varies. For a lot of people, it just means a lot, and always has.
What do you attribute to that? Do you think there's something biological, like many people have argued that we're sort of hardwired for religion? Do you think that religion is sort of keeping in lockstep with evolutionary processes?
Well, first of all, we know very little about the evolution of humans in any relevant respect. I mean, we know a lot about the fossil record and so on. But when you get to human cognitive capacities, or and so higher, what we call sometimes higher mental faculties, the evolutionary record is just extremely thin. We're a very recent product of evolution. Modern humans, from a cognitive perspective, cognitive behavioral perspective, only emerged within roughly the last 100,000 years, which is like a flick of an eye in evolutionary time. And we're all more or less identical. There's very little genetic variation relevant genetic variation among humans, because there's been, we probably come from a small breeding group somewhere in East Africa, probably no later than, say, 50,000 years ago. There's no time for anything to have happened. We can, in a sense, it's like almost, in my view, virtually a tautology to say that a commitment to religious belief is the result of evolution, because we're the result of evolution. Just like my chin is, my toenails are. So are my higher mental faculties. But that just doesn't tell you very much. I mean, we all know, without doing pop science, that people do want to find ways to give an intelligible picture of the universe around them, to find comfort, to find association with others. And they do it in all kinds of ways. Some of them we call religion. A lot of some of it we call magic. In the modern period of the rise of organized modern science, of course, goes way back, but really as a major phenomenon in human life, there's been a concerted attempt to gain an understanding of the world by means that do permit confirmation, disconfirmation, building on the results of others, and so on. So we call science. Okay, that we should push that as far as we can. Surely we want to understand as much as we can about the world, and that's the best way to understand it.
Do you think that religion overall, I'm talking here about monotheistic religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, do you think that it's the case that religious believers are asking the right questions about the meaning of life and creating some type of order, but that the solutions are dangerous?
Well, personally, I don't think they're asking the right questions about life, but and that's why I don't ask those questions. So, Jewish in background, but I don't repeat the I believe
X, Y, and Z.
All the X, Y's, and Z's that you're supposed to do, because I don't believe them, and I don't see any reason to believe them. My grandfather did repeat them, and whether he believed them or not, I frankly don't even know, because Judaism, traditional Judaism, was more a religion of practice than of belief. So he observed, he's very orthodox, but he observed the practices, and I never asked him, did he believe what he was saying, because it kind of wasn't relevant. That's not what the religion was. There are others who may choose to believe, let's say, this or other monotheistic religions, but I don't